Good afternoon, everyone. I'm filling in for our chair, Dr. Fry, who's not with us this Friday. So the next 2 hours you're stuck with me as chair. So thank you very much, everyone. So I call this meeting to order this afternoon. And welcome to meeting 56 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. First off, I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is in fact taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Pursuant to the order of reference adopted by the House on Tuesday, May 31st of 2022, the committee is resuming clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-18, an act respecting online communications platform that make news content available to persons in Canada. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, pursuant to the House Order of Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely as we see them on Zoom application. So first off, I would like to make a few comments for the benefits of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking, if you can. And for those participating by video conference here this afternoon, as you know, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you're not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either on the floor, English or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. And just a reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. So in accordance with our routine motion, I am informing the committee that all witnesses are present here this afternoon. Therefore, no connection tests in advance of the meeting were required. I would now like to welcome the witnesses who are present to answer any technical questions that we have about our Bill C-18 today. So we'd like to welcome from the Department of Heritage, as always, Owen Ripley. Thank you for joining us. Joelle Parry, close, thank you, Acting Director, and Pierre-Marc Lauzon, thank you very much. So with us, as usual, is the committee clerk, Ms. Belmore, and we have the legislative clerks today to my left, to your right, Philippe Mela and Jean-Francois Paget. So that's everyone in the room. So Mario, sorry, you're in the back there, so thank you for joining us also here today. So we're waiting for Mr. Shields, who is on now, and we'll start where we left off on Tuesday, which was CPC 12, and that's Mrs. Thomas. If you could lead us, and that's on page 18 for everybody. Clause Article 7, page 4. Mrs. Thomas, lead us off on CPC 12.
Okay. Sorry, Chair, just one moment here. Perfect. Okay.
While you're taking a moment, is there a French translation? We've had some issues in the past, and are we okay on the French translation? Is everybody good if I keep talking here? Because some of our meetings, in fact, we've started and then we've had an issue, so I just want to make sure. Mr. Shampoo.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it's a question we should ask our interpreters to ensure that the quality of sound and of equipment has been checked by our interpreters. I can hear interpretation currently, so I'm assuming everything is working. But if they want to give us a sign, a thumbs up, everything seems to be in order, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Mrs. Thomas, are you ready for CPC 12? Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me a moment there, Chair.
Yep.
Sure. So with regards to CPC 12, really what we're trying to do here is just to ensure that individual privacy is respected. So, of course, a DNI, such as Facebook, let's say, for example, collects individual user data, and that is used and held within the confines of existing legislation within the jurisdiction in which they operate. This amendment, CPC 12, would simply be asking for further clarification with respect to privacy protection. So it's basically making sure that when a DNI has to provide information to the Commission, that information would be disclosed with the exception of individual information. So in other words, privacy would still be respected, data ownership would still be protected in accordance to any other act of Parliament or other law. And so it's simply for the sake of further clarity and protection for everyday online users is ultimately what we're going for there.
Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Ultimately, restricting the ability of the CRTC to collect information only benefits the platforms and foreign tech giants. They could easily withhold necessary information for the purposes of this, the legislative objectives. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. I guess I would just ask the clerk, the officials, sorry. I would ask the officials maybe just for some further information with regards to this. The legislation as it's currently written, it doesn't offer this confinement as to what information could be demanded of these DNIs. So I guess I would just ask, in your estimation then, is that quite a wide berth? Or is there anything in there that would protect the privacy rights of individuals and make sure that the information of an individual user, let's say of Facebook, would in fact be protected and not called upon from the Commission?
Thank you for the question, MP Thomas. A couple of observations. The first, with respect to the first part of your question, the CRTC has the authority to ask for information it requires in the administration of the Act. So its authority is bound by information that it needs to administer the Act. The CRTC would be acting outside of its authority if it tried to request information not related to the administration of the Act. There are indeed other federal frameworks governing privacy. So PIPEDA legislation, the Privacy Act with respect to the public sector, and so the CRTC remains bound by those frameworks and those obligations. With respect to what would be characterized as more confidential business information, as you may know, the Act does provide for an opportunity at Section 55 for information that is submitted to the Commission to be classified as confidential, and there's a framework in place for how that information could be managed. So from my perspective, that's the lay of the land with respect to privacy.
I guess, thank you. I appreciate that. And my follow-up question would be is, currently as it stands, are there limitations as to what the CRTC can request? If it considers it to be information that is pertinent to this Act, can it ask for it? Or are there any limitations to that request that can be made?
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. So again, as long as the CRTC was of the opinion that it was necessary for the administration of the Act, so a reasonable hypothetical in this kind of situation might be about the number of Canadian users that a digital news intermediary has in Canada. The digital news intermediary remains bound by PIPEDA and any obligations in that respect, and then the CRTC would remain bound by the legislation governing the public sector. So in that instance, for example, I would see no reason why you would have individual personal information submitted to the CRTC. It would be at the aggregate level, but regardless, the CRTC still remains bound by the broader framework governing privacy. We did have the opportunity on the departmental side to do some consultations on the privacy questions, and the assessment was that there were minimal implications for with respect to personal information.
You use the phrase minimal implications, which means there are still some. So can you expand on that? What are the privacy infringements within this?
Again, Ms. Thomas, I would, for the purposes of administering the act, from where we sit, the information that would be provided to the CRTC would be in the aggregate. I see no reason why you would be in a situation where there would be the submission of personal information.
Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if our witnesses could answer this question for me, but I haven't had a lot of involvement with the CRTC. Have they got any history of data privacy breaches or anything? I mean, I know that there have been thousands of them in government, but I don't know anything about the CRTC. Are they fairly secure?
Thank you, Ms. Gladue. Offhand, I am not aware. That would be a question you would have to ask to the CRTC in particular. What I would say is the mechanism that's provided for in this piece of legislation is modeled on existing mechanisms in the Broadcasting Act as well as the Telecommunications Act, where it is recognized that there is sensitive information that is sometimes being provided to the CRTC as the regulator to enable to carry out its functions, and that information should be protected accordingly, and only in very limited situations, should there be any kind of public disclosure about it, subject to a public interest test. So again, at Section 55 of this bill, you see that framework set out, which again is modeled on existing frameworks under the Broadcasting Act as well as the Telecoms Act.
No questions. Seeing no other hands then, can we proceed to the vote? Shall CPC 12 carry? No? Saying no, so we'll ask the clerk here for the vote, a registered vote.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor?
Mr. Shields.
In favor?
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Champoux.
Je m'oppose.
Mr. Julian.
Opposé.
That is 7 nays and 3 yays.
Thank you. So CPC 12 does not carry, 7-4. Shall Clause 7 carry?
Agreed.
No. So we need a recorded vote. No, recorded vote.
On Clause 7, Mr. Biddle. Mr. Coteau. Mr. Coteau, I'm sorry, you're on mute, sir.
You called Mr. Biddle, I think.
Can you hear me?
You just did it again.
Mr. Coteau? Did you want me to come back to you for your vote, or would you like to vote now, sir?
Sorry, in favor?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hefner.
Okay, thank you.
In favor.
Mr. Housefather.
In favor.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Gladue.
Opposed?
Mr. Shields.
Opposed?
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
Pour.
Mr. Julian.
En faveur.
Merci. 7 yeas, 3 nays.
Okay, so Clause 7 carries. Shall Clause 8 carry? No? Another vote, please. Clerk?
Thank you, sir. On Clause 8, Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hepner.
In favor.
Mr. Housefather.
En faveur.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. Gladue.
No.
Mr. Shields.
Opposed?
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
En faveur.
7 yeas, 3 nays.
That means Clause 8 carries. Shall Clause 9 carry? No? Okay, another vote, please, clerk.
Yes, sir. Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hepner.
En faveur.
Mr. Housefather.
En faveur.
Mr. Lewis.
En favor.
Ms. Gladue.
No.
Mr. Shields.
Opposed?
Mrs. Thomas.
No.
Monsieur Champoux.
En faveur.
Monsieur Julian.
En faveur.
7 yeas, 3 nays.
Clause 9 carries. Shall Clause 10 carry? Okay, another recorded vote, please.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Monsieur Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hepner.
In favor.
Mr. Housefather.
En faveur.
Mr. Lewis.
En favor.
Ms. Gladue.
Contre.
Mr. Shields.
Opposed?
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
En faveur.
Monsieur Julian.
En faveur.
7 yeas, 3 nays.
Clause 10 carries. We'll move now to CPC 12.1. And Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you so much, Chair. So essentially what CPC 12.1 attempts to do is bring about some further clarification or simplification within the definition. Clause 11, of course, has to do with the exemption order, and so it's essentially
Point of
trying...
order?
Yes, point of order,
Sorry.
Mr. Biddle?
Just for my own,
Yep.
I apologize to Mrs. Thomas. Is 12.1 before 11? I think we just passed 10.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
It's on the amendment CPC 12.1 in clause 11.
Oh, it's clause 11. My apologies.
Okay, continue, Mrs. Thomas.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, so we are on Clause 11, to be clear. And Clause 11 has to do with granting an exemption order. So it establishes criteria that have to be met by the DNIs in order to be exempt from this legislation further applying to them. And so here we see a number of criteria established. our attempt here then is to clarify and simplify, and it is also to, I suppose you could say, put some parameters with regard to this exemption order or these criteria. So I'll draw people's attention particularly to B, which is to delete lines 16 and 17 on page 5. Now, what those lines did is they say that there's any condition set out in regulations made by the governor and council. Now, as Mr. Ripley pointed out a number of meetings ago, the governor and council essentially refers to cabinet. And so what this is saying is that if there are any conditions whatsoever that are set out by cabinet in regulation, then those can be used in order to grant an exemption. Stakeholders have said that this is quite vague. It's leaving them with significant uncertainty, and their concern is for on both sides, from DNIs and from eligible news businesses, they're wanting to know those terms up front. Obviously, news businesses are interested because they want to make sure that they get a fair shake. DNIs are interested because they want to know to what extent do they have to bargain, and at what point can they reasonably apply for an exemption. And so there's clarity desired on all fronts. Further from us, there would be clarity desired just because we believe that that's good public policy. And so to leave this so vague with regard to any condition set out in regulation made by the governor and council just seems, well, it just seems very much, it just seems far too open-ended and therefore problematic for stakeholders, and very difficult then for them to form a business model or any sort of anticipation with regards to this legislation and what it would fully mean for them. So looking to bring about further clarity there. I can probably leave that there for now. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Biddle.
I'll pass it over to Mr. Housefather.
Thanks so much, Mr. Biddle. I just had a couple of questions. I'm having a bit of trouble following as I read the amendment. It says by replacing lines 22 to 24 on page 4 with the following: request the exemption and the operator has entered into agreements with. Basically changing the words "and the following conditions are met with" and the operator has entered into agreements with. But then the rest remains the same. So I don't like there's nothing that I see that says that they're deleting lines 25 and following. So I'm just a bit confused with how that actually works.
Mrs. Thomas, yeah?
Is it okay?
Yeah, of course. I
Okay.
just want to understand how you see the wording actually working and flowing from one to the other.
Yeah, for sure. So you're right in pointing out the first change there on lines 22 to 24. So we've made a small change there. And then if you keep going, it's on the next page, page 5 in the legislation. There's item B under exemption 11 or under clause 11. And so that item B is the one that allows for any condition to be set out by the governor and council. We're striking that.
That I understand. Sorry for the back and forth. That I understand.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how the words flow from one to the other. Like does A stay the operator has entered into agreements with, or is there an A that somehow takes part of the line that first line? Like that's what I don't understand, because the way it now words, we're taking away the words "and the following conditions are met," which would be A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which stay.
Yeah.
And it would now, as I understand it, but I'm probably wrong, it would say request the exemption and the operator has entered into agreements with A, the operator has entered into agreements with, and that's what I don't understand how they flow together.
I don't know if I understand your question.
Sorry, I don't know if that's what I don't understand. If you sort of look at it.
Legislative Clerk, Mr. Mela.
No worries, I don't know.
Maybe address some of the concerns that we have with CPC 12.1 here, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I understand what you're saying, Mr. Housefather. It's more a drafting question than legislative clerking question, so to speak, because there is the end of the top part of 11, paragraph 1, that says the following conditions are met, and there's a semicolon there, and there is an A and B, so that would disappear, and it would read then, if its operator requests the exemption and the operator has entered into agreement with news businesses, and then it would go on. So the A disappears completely there, the semicolon and the met, there's no A and B anymore, so it would be just one full paragraph. I'm not sure if that was your question.
If that's how it's worded, I understand it better. Thank you.
Okay.
I still don't think it's, but I understand it better.
Mr. Housefather, you still have the floor?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We heard from experts like Professor Owen. The exemption criteria set out in the Act is the primary policy tool in play for C18. It ensures that smaller players will benefit. It ensures that deals do not allow corporate influence over news coverage. This amendment takes away from that. And once again, we see the Conservatives presenting what seems like a reasonable amendment, but again, taking the side of big tech over Canadian news organizations.
Yes.
Sorry, if I could add, sorry, I didn't make out the very first premise of Mr.
Okay.
Biddle's statement, and so it lost context for the entire thing for me.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Thomas. Then we'll go to Ms. Gladue.
Can he just clarify? Like, he
Okay.
said that the entire legislation is subject to something, and therefore,
I did not say that. So
Do- would,
You want to repeat what you said?
not
Mr.
really.
Biddle? No.
To help with the Conservative filibuster, I guess
No, it's no filibuster.
I'm
We're
put on the
just
spot. I was just quoting from Professor Taylor Owen that the exemption criteria is. Sorry, just seeing the lights flash. The exemption
are.
criteria set out in the Act is one of the primary tools of C18. That's the preface.
Okay, I just want to go to Ms. Gladue and then Ms. Thomas. Ms. Gladue,
Thank you, Chair.
your hand was up first.
Yes, I just want to say that I support this amendment because I think people do not want the government, after the fact with no parliamentary oversight, deciding what to put in the regulations to exempt people from this framework. So I think that we need to have transparency about it. And taking this B clause out leaves the rest of it really clear as far as what the terms are.
Thank you. We'll go to Mrs. Thomas.
yeah, thank you. Let's be really clear here. I recognize that the members opposite enjoy launching baseless attacks against this side of the table. By allowing for B to remain in there, where it would be up to the cabinet to determine any condition to be applied with regards to an exemption, it actually puts news businesses in danger because they don't know what those conditions are then that DNIs can just move forward with an exemption. And so those conditions could be the CBC has entered into a negotiation, Bell has entered into a negotiation, all of these big companies have entered into negotiations, and so therefore an exemption is granted. Well, how does that help ethnic media? How does that help our local newspapers? So by allowing this clause to stay in there, or this section to stay in there, and allowing for such vague criteria to be implemented by cabinet actually puts the little guys in danger. So let's be really clear about what's going on here. It allows for this government to show favoritism toward the big media companies that push out their story. And it puts the little guys in danger because they could be prevented from entering into negotiation with DNIs because DNIs could be granted the exception.
Any other comments? Seeing none then, no other hands, so we'll proceed with the vote. On CPC 12.1, shall it carry? Okay. Proceed.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau,
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner,
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather,
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis,
Contre.
Ms. Gladue,
Yes.
Mr. Shields,
In favor?
Mrs. Thomas,
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux,
On sera contre.
Monsieur Julien.
Contre.
Merci. 7 contre, 3 pour.
Thank you. CPC 12.1 is defeated. Can we move to NDP 4? And Mr. Julian, before you get started, I'll say if NDP 4 is adopted, CPC 13 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. The floor is yours, Mr. Julian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good to see you in the chair. Good that you're in the room with us. I disagreed with the content of the CPC amendment. I did agree with the thrust of Ms. Thomas's argument, which is that we need to make sure that there is a very clear criteria in terms of granting exemptions. So NDP 4, and you'll recall our testimony from the Independent Online News Publishers of Canada was very clear in this respect, that the current criteria for laying out exemptions is too vague and really leaves the door open for the big tech to push hard for an exemption when they haven't completed negotiations. So what the NDP 4 proposes is that Section 11 would be amended to ensure that deals must be made with all eligible news organizations before the platforms are granted an exemption. And that would ensure, with the window of opportunity that's provided, that eligible news organizations can identify themselves, and that big tech does have to make that negotiation. So Ms. Thomas asked the rhetorical question, what about ethnic media? What about small media? What about those that big tech may not choose to negotiate with? NDP4 resolves that by ensuring that all of the eligible news organizations need to have those agreements before big tech can apply for the exemption. So hopefully it'll receive support from all four corners of this committee, and it helps to tighten the rules around exemptions.
Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. With respect to my friend, Mr. Julian, I appreciate what he's trying to do. However, I worry that this may undermine the bill. Looking at the tactics of foreign tech giants, they will look for any way in which to avoid the requirements. If there is just one holdout media or media outlet, if we've seen some media outlets that don't agree with this, and may not even bother applying. So the exemption itself, the purpose of the bill is to have platforms reach deals with news organizations themselves for, pardon me?
Internal thought.
Internal thought. Here's the ironic thing to anyone listening. Mrs. Thomas just engaged in a heckle. She likes to attack everyone's credibility and then cry foul when there's a perceived attack on her credibility, which there is never. There is a high amount of respect on this committee, except for one member of this committee that continuously engages in personal attacks. That being said, some parties already have deals, don't want to renegotiate or go through arbitration. However, this amendment would undermine the exemption mechanism by removing the initiatives for platforms to seek an exemption. It would incentivize platforms to go through, would instead incentivize platforms to go through the bargaining process where they would likely delay for as long as possible through legal challenges and procedural methods. While we understand the intent, it will only benefit the tech platforms who have money and resources to drag this out as long as possible. Exemptions were a key element of the Australian law. In Australia, the addition of the exemptions, the exemption process addressed the concern of platforms who had removed or threatened to remove news content. By undermining it, as I said, we jeopardize the bill. A better outcome could be achieved through collective bargaining, which I know Mr. Julian is a big champion both in this bill and in other fora as well. And that is the way to get as many outlets together. And we've heard from the major players that they are willing to collectively bargain with smaller players, and that is the best way to get as many deals as possible, requiring all of them. Really, in the end, my worry is a loophole that will serve the foreign tech giants.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. We'll go to Mrs. Thomas and then Mr. Housefather. Go ahead, Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. Essentially what this amendment does, and I support it in principle. I will offer a sub-amendment, though. So essentially, this bill is that DNIs have to enter into negotiations with eligible news businesses. This amendment makes sure that if there are 20 lined up to bargain with the DNIs, all 20 have to be bargained with before an exemption can be granted. I fail to understand how that is benefiting big tech. Everyone lined up, everyone wanting to enter into negotiations gets to enter into negotiations. That's favoring the little guy. That's advocating for them. So I guess I'll ask a question for clarification. Mr. Ripley, by allowing all eligible news media sources to enter into negotiations with DNIs before an exemption can be granted, is that leaving some eligible news businesses out of the picture?
Thank you for the question, MP Thomas. So if this amendment were to be adopted, it would in essence require, as you indicate, platforms to come to an agreement with all eligible news businesses prior to getting an exemption. It would be a major departure from the way the Act is currently structured, in that the Act right now is intended to put in place a bargaining framework, and through the exemption criteria indicate that there is a certain threshold that must be met in order for DNIs to get an exemption. The intention behind that was to put in place an incentive for DNIs to want to get an exemption, and that was very much modeled on the Australian experience, where the goal is not to actually, rely on the back end of this bill in terms of mandatory bargaining and final offer arbitration. And in that context, in the context of a bargaining framework, it is understood that there could be news businesses who do not have an agreement in place with a DNI because the exemption criteria could be met. One observation is, again, if you go the route of requiring an agreement with every single news business in order to have an exemption, it is unclear to us whether any DNI would actually pursue an exemption at that point, because it's not clear whether there's really an incentive structure to do so. Then why not simply rely on the mandatory bargaining framework at the back of the bill?
I guess, Mr. Ripley, a further question then would just be, in terms of the exemption order, if the goal is to allow, local newspaper entities, ethnic media entities, et cetera, like these smaller entities, if our goal is ultimately to allow them the opportunity to enter into negotiation, what benefit does the exemption order have to the news businesses?
The government shares that objective in that a DNI should not be able to get an exemption without having agreements in place with small independent players, and the government's position would be if you look at the exemption criteria, you will see that there are strong markers put there about the importance in under subparagraph 2, supporting production of local news content, in subparagraph 5, which is really a critical one for independent local news businesses, that a significant portion of them have to benefit from the agreements and that the agreements have to contribute to the sustainability of those businesses. And then at subparagraph 6, again, you see a reference to a range of news outlets, including local news and different kinds of business models. So the government does share that objective that these agreements need to be diverse. They cannot be simply with a small group of consolidated players, but that they do have to be put in place with independent local news businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley. But my question was, how does the exemption benefit these smaller news outlets? How does it defend their ability to enter into negotiations?
So in short, the bill is about putting that obligation on platforms to bargain, and then the exemption criteria benefit independent local news businesses by saying that in the context of that bargaining obligation, some of that bargaining has to be with them. And when the CRTC looks at all of the agreements that are being brought forward to justify an exemption, again, they have to see that a significant portion of independent local news businesses benefit from those agreements and that it contributes to their sustainability. So again, the intention behind the exemption process was not that every news business be entitled to an agreement, that there be certain discretion left to the free market for the DNIs and the news businesses to determine that. But at the end of the day, the CRTC assesses whether enough has been done in relation to these criteria.
I would put forward a sub-amendment to my colleague's amendment. And so I wonder if he would accept. Anyways, I move that we would take section B from CPC 13. So we would be looking to take B, and which replaces line 32 on page 4 to line 17 on page 5 with the text that is outlined in CPC 13 there. And so we would want to take that and add it in with NDP 4.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if you could, I'm a little lost here.
Yeah. Do you have that in writing, Mrs. Thomas? No? You have it. Okay. We're fine here with the ladies.
I believe the legislative clerk and the officials should have CPC 13 in front of them. And so what I'm asking is that we would take section B from that amendment, CPC 13, and we would add it to the latter part of NDP 4. If it's of benefit, Chair, it's of course up to you, but I would entertain a quick suspension and just have a quick conversation with my NDP colleague.
Yeah, we'll suspend for a couple of minutes then. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Good. Suspend. I am going to ask Mr. Mela, the legislative clerk, to go over the sub-amendment. And if you can, Mr. Mela, inform us of the new text on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as Mrs. Thomas was explaining, the sub-amendment would simply add paragraph B that is located on CPC 13, and with the instruction to replace line 32 on page 4 to line 17 on page 5 with the text that's provided in CPC 13. And do you want me to?
Yep. Keep going.
Yep. And that comes with the following consequence. So it would be if NDP 4 is adopted, CPC 13, G1, NDP 5, CPC 13.1, NDP 6, NDP 7, PV 2, NDP 8, and CPC 13.2 could not be moved due to line conflict.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the sub-amendment? So I see none. No other hands up? Don't see any. Is it procedure now to call for the vote on this? Yeah, should the sub-amendment carry? So again, we have split votes, so away you go.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau,
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner,
Contre.
Mr. Housefather, Mr. Lewis,
Opposed.
Ms. Gladue,
In favor.
Mr. Shields,
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas,
In favor.
Mr. Champoux,
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
Contre.
On Ms. Thomas's sub-amendment, I have 7 nays, 3 yays.
Thank you. So the sub-amendment proposed by Mrs. Thomas is defeated. We will go back to NDP 4, the speaking list, Mr. Housefather.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I hope I will have the opportunity to convince my dear friend, Mr. Julian, that this is not the best advised amendment. I think it comes from a very good place in the same way that I think CPC 12.1 came from a good place. But I was actually more inclined to support 12.1 than I am to support this one, because I think both, in a certain way, would have caused problems with respect to the regime, but this would cause many, many more problems. So let me just look at, because we have to look at this holistically. What is the definition of eligible? Eligible means, in relation to a news business, means that the business is designated under subsection 27.1 admissible. News business means an individual or entity that operates a news outlet. And 27.1, let me just move to 27.1, Mr. Chair. At the request of a news business, the Commission must by order designate the business as eligible if, and then it comes out with various criteria. Si on accepte l'amendement NDP 4, c'est-à-dire...
If we accept NDP 4, that would mean that all businesses would need to succeed in having agreements with the platforms. And you could have one business that is uncooperative for any given reason. You could have one business that wants to work against this plan. And they could stop negotiating. All it takes is one instance of bad faith that capitalizes on the situation, to then prevent everyone else from concluding deals, because they do not really wish to negotiate in good faith. So I do not think that NDP4 can be adopted without other significant amendments to ensure, in other places in the bill perhaps, that everyone is negotiated in good faith. And these parts are not included in the bill currently. And I'm not even sure, legally speaking, if it's possible to say that there are businesses recognized as nonprofits under the Income Tax Act
that would not fall there, and then basically you would be saying that they would have to also get an agreement even though they never voiced their intention to get an agreement. So the word all scares me a lot. I don't know how that could be modified or whatever, but I think it would require many other modifications to make it work with the regime in the form that it is now, because certainly we don't want one bad actor to block the desire of the platform from reaching agreements with everybody, the DNI, and have everybody negotiating in good faith. And if they come to the terms with 90%, well, they should be recognized, I think, because it probably means the other 10% weren't negotiating on fair terms or in good faith. So that scares me. And so I get the desire to have all small businesses captured and taken care of, but I don't think the way to say all is the way to go, and I'm hoping perhaps I convinced my friend Mr. Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Mr. Shampoo.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have my answer.
Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. Respecting what Mr. Housefather just said, I'd like to propose a sub-amendment so that NDP4 would be all eligible news businesses that want to negotiate in good faith and operate news outlets that, etc.
Okay, we'll just check with Mr. Mela here as he's writing it down. Do you want to repeat that again, please, Ms. Gladue?
Yes, it would. And so it would become NDP4 all eligible news businesses that, and we would add in the words, want to negotiate in good faith and then continue with NDP4, operate news outlets that.
On the sub-amendment. Mr. Housefather.
I mean, I see the good place that my dear friend Ms. Gladue is coming from on that, because she's trying to fix a problem in the section. I'm not sure that the fact that they just want to negotiate in good faith, they would actually have to negotiate in good faith. But even then, I'm not sure, because it has to get fixed in other places in the bill too. And I haven't had a chance to look at it to see where else it would need to get fixed. So I don't think that solves it by itself, but I appreciate the attempt because it certainly would make it better. I don't think it solves the problem.
Mr. Julian.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not speaking specifically to the sub-amendment. I'm coming back to the amendment itself. And I have enormous respect for Mr. Housefather. Feel he's a tremendously learned member of committee, but I do not buy his argument, despite that it is very effectively put forward. The examples we've seen, for example, in the Australia example, you don't have news organizations working in bad faith. What we do see is a real attempt by big tech to look for exemptions. So I don't want to filibuster this, and we have so many other amendments to work through, so I'm not going to intervene again on this. But I would say the amendment that was proposed in the testimony from the Independent Online News Publishers of Canada is an effective amendment. I do not buy the argument that somehow news organizations will operate in bad faith. That's certainly not the track record that we've seen from the Australian model. I think the Online News Publishers of Canada are making a huge difference in my community. I'll just mention this, Mr. Chair. We went from 4 community newspapers to 2, devastated by the amount of ad revenue that was taken by Facebook and other digital news intermediaries. the Independent Online News Publishers of Canada have reestablished 2 of those. So we've actually seen a doubling of our of the local news that is produced, and a shout out certainly to the Burnaby Beacon and the New Westminster Anchor, to publications that are making a difference in our community. So the idea that the big tech has an incentive to negotiate with all eligible news businesses, I think, is a good one. I don't intend to work through. There's a wide variety of sub-amendments we could propose to solve a problem that I don't believe is actually a legitimate one, certainly from the Australian model. I think this is a legitimate amendment, but we will see how the committee feels. And I think we should move fairly rapidly to a vote. I did not intend at all that this become an amendment that we would spend a lot of time on. I think the positions of each of the parties is already well known.
Discussion on the sub-amendment by Ms. Gladue. Seeing none, I'd like to call the vote. Is there? Call the vote, please, on the sub-amendment by Ms. Gladue.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Opposed, but with gratitude to Ms. Gladue.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. Gladue.
I made it, so I think I have to be in favor.
Mr. Shields.
Oh, you bet. Support it.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Champoux.
Oppose.
Mr. Julian.
A big thank you to Ms. Gladue, who's always looking for common ground, but I will vote in opposition. Opposed.
7 nays, 3 yays.
Thank you. The sub-amendment by Ms. Gladue is then defeated. And if we can go back to the main amendment, NDP 4, Mr. Julian, I'll give you the final words. You have spoken, but just before you wrap up on NDP 4 again, so if we adopt NDP 4, CPC 13 cannot be moved to a line. Hold on, maybe I'm wrong. Am I? Okay. What's that? Okay, no, I was right. So we'll have you address NDP 4, and again, and I talked about it at the beginning, if it is adopted here, CPC 13 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. So Mr. Julian, if you would like to address NDP 4.
I think I have a couple of ties, Mr. Chair, and don't intend to do it a third time. I did want to thank the Independent Online News Publishers of Canada for their very valuable input in the testimony that they gave to this committee.
Thank you very much. Shall NDP 4 carry? No? We'll have a vote. We'll call for the vote. I'm just seeing if you're paying attention.
Mr. Biddle. Monsieur Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
En faveur.
6 nays, 4 yays.
Thank you, Clerk. NDP 4 is defeated. We'll move on to CPC 13. And before we get to Mrs. Thomas, so am I right here? Yes, CPC 13. If CPC 13 is adopted here, G1, NDP 5, CPC 13.1, NDP 6, NDP 7, PV 2, NDP 8, and CPC 13.2 then cannot be moved to a line conflict. The floor is yours, Mrs. Thomas, on CPC 13.
Thank you. Essentially, 13 tries to take NDP 4 and combine it with a few other things. Basically, the deal is that under Section 11, it deals with exemption orders. With this amendment, we're wanting to ensure that that digital news intermediaries have to enter into negotiation with those who wish to, without certain news media companies or eligible news businesses, I should say, being left out. So basically, it's a mechanism of inclusion and wanting to ensure that that those smaller entities that were left out by legislation such as Australia's are not left out by Canada's legislation. So essentially, it's fighting for a fair playing field for all news outlets. That is it.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Mr. Julian, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think the fact that you mentioned the number of amendments that would fall if this amendment is passed, because it is comprehensive, I'll be voting against. It is. I think there are a number of other critical issues that we have to address in this particular clause, in Clause 11. And this particular amendment, though authored in good faith, is so comprehensive that it limits the scope of the eligibility that is required, I think, at the same time as it stops a number of other important amendments from being adopted. So I'll be voting against.
Mr. Biddle.
Quickly, because I believe Mr. Julian covered it well, this really upends the structure of the bill, and we're opposed to it.
Any other discussion on CPC 13? Seeing no hands, we'll ask for the vote. Shall CPC 13 carry? Okay. Call for the vote.
Mr. Biddle?
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau?
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner?
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather?
Contre.
Mr. Lewis?
Opposed.
Ms. Gladue?
En faveur?
Mr. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux?
Contre.
Mr. Julian?
Contre.
On CPC 13, 7 nays, 3 yays.
Thank you. CPC 13 is defeated. We'll move on to Government 1.
If I may,
Yep,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Biddle.
we'd like to withdraw Government 1. We prefer NDP 7. So
Okay.
we may withdraw that and speed things along.
Thank you. So can we move then to NDP 5, which is next on your pages, and I think it's numbered in page 24 here. So NDP 5, if adopted, CPC 13.1 then cannot be moved because of a line conflict. Mr. Julian, the floor is yours.
Oh, gosh, we're proceeding at such a speed. Mr. Chair, I just, if you can give me just a moment, have to catch my breath. I've been turning pages, and thanks to Mr. Biddle for his intervention. This would modify line 7 on page 5 with the following: local news businesses and all eligible news businesses benefit from them. This is an amendment that was suggested by Unifor, one of Canada's largest the largest private sector union that also provides a great deal of support for workers in journalism and the communications sector. What this would be doing is providing for more inclusivity, similar to the previous amendment we discussed, that for news businesses that are going through the eligibility process, that they would be included as part of the process. So we want to make sure that all eligible news organizations are included. This is another attempt to do that in a way that ensures that there is real maximum bargaining power from eligible news businesses towards big tech. So thanks to Unifor for making those suggestions in terms of amendments, and I'll move that amendment.
It's not an amendment, though, right? Or, yeah, Mr. Biddle.
Before my comments, I was wondering if I could ask Mr. Ripley a question as to are there any constitutional issues if this amendment were to be passed?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Biddle. Nothing from a constitutional perspective comes to mind. The thrust of it is similar to what we were discussing, that in essence what this would result in is an obligation to have an agreement with all news businesses in order to benefit from, or all eligible news businesses, excuse me, in order to benefit. And so my observation would be this muddies the water between the exemption subparagraph 4, which is intended to speak to the sustainability of the Canadian news marketplace as a whole, and then subparagraph 5, which was specifically about independent local news businesses and innovative business models. And so in essence, I think this amendment broadens subparagraph 5 to not only be about independent local businesses, but all eligible news businesses.
I won't go over it too much because I discussed it with the previous amendment from Mr. Julian. And again, I think it's really coming from a very good place in terms of Mr. Julian's desire to protect workers. But the goal of C18 and the reason for the exemption is that the benefit is to encourage foreign tech giants to enter into as many negotiations as possible, and to also at the same time encourage collective bargaining. Again, I'm worried about this amendment undermining the regime and jeopardizing the bill. There's a possibility in terms of a potential for a trade risk. Amendment is unnecessary. It has the same outcomes that could be achieved through collective bargaining, where news organizations can band together and seek deals, which we saw in the Australian model. And again, I appreciate the effort to try to increase the amount of deals, but I think it may at the same time, that intention may actually reduce it, may drag things out, and I guess highlight what Mr. Housefather had said before, as I'm rambling a bit at this point. So, and my own remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biddle. We move now to Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that Mr. Biddle used the words not filibustering, but rambling. So I wanted to ask a question further to Mr. Housefather's point on this. We want to make this as broad as possible so everybody that wants to participate in and get a deal can do it. But we don't want a bad actor to stymie the whole bunch. So does Mr. Riley have a suggestion as to how that could be done in the bill?
Thank you, Ms. Gladue for the question. I mean, I do believe there have been suggestions put forward. I think it was CPC 12.1, for example, that had the notion of folks who wanted to have an agreement, requesting an agreement. From the government's perspective, though, it is, I think the debate that's being had in this committee is a fundamental one about is the purpose of Section 11 to incent, platforms to try to come to voluntary agreements with a view to obtaining certain policy objectives, or is Section 7 a kind of a binding obligation to achieve a very specific, comprehensive set of agreements? And from the government's perspective, that's a fundamental distinction, and the bill as crafted, again, is intended to put in place an incentive to get to voluntary agreements and leave it to the market to a certain extent to arrive at that outcome.
Okay, thank you.
We move to Mr. Housefather.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to repeat what I've said earlier, but this is exactly the same issue that we've already been over. Here we're talking about all eligible news businesses, and once again, an actor in bad faith could prevent all other businesses, even if 99% of them want to go forward. So I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to request a sub-amendment or move a sub-amendment because CPC 13.1 would be nullified or would not be considered if NDP 5 carries. What I'll suggest then is that we move a sub-amendment there. So what I would be asking for is in 13.1 we have A and B. Ignore A for a moment. And what I would be asking is that B would be worked in. But here's how, if I may. So on line 13 in the current legislation, it says, including diversity with respect to language, and then we would insert ideology and opinion, and then it would continue to say racialized groups, Indigenous communities, local news, and business models. Yeah? Sorry? No, I just want, no, so on line 13 of the current legislation, my sub-amendment would be that it would read, including diversity with respect to language, and then my insertion, my sub-amendment, it would go language, comma, ideology, comma, opinion, comma, and then pick up with the current bill, which says racialized groups, Indigenous communities, etc.
Just the two words after language then, on page, or on line 13.
I'm simply adding ideology, the word ideology and opinion after language on line 13. Mr. Julian, is that clear?
It is clear. Whether I agree to it is another question.
Okay.
MP Shampoo. Oh, no, sorry. Mrs. Thomas, you still have the floor.
I just, before I continue, I just want to make sure that that the clerk is up to speed. I don't know if we need to suspend for a second.
Yeah, okay, we'll just suspend for 1 second.
Sorry.
For Mr. Mela to confer with you on that, if we can, on the sub-amendment. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in a sense, what Mrs. Thomas wants to do is simply add the paragraph B that is in CPC 13.1 after the amendment of Mr. Julian. That's about it.
Okay, Mr. Shampoo, you had some thoughts?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill C-18 aims to address an imbalance in the news sector. What we're trying to do is to protect against the invasion by web giants in this industry. So obviously what we want to do is save newsrooms. That's our goal. But we have to keep this intention in mind while we're voting today. And one of the foundations of journalism is the fact that there are criteria that must be respected by journalists. Among them, independence, fairness, rigor, and opinion is one thing, along with ideology, that is exempt from the profession of journalism. We want to see news be supported by C-18, so I will oppose this sub-amendment because I think that it will open a door to opinion pieces, ideological pieces that do not have a role in proper journalism. Perhaps I'm a purist in that sense, but I feel we must guarantee that there are criteria that protect journalism in the C-18, and that is why I will vote against the sub-amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Shampoo. Mr. Biddle.
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, as Monsieur Shampoo said it much better than I possibly could have. I think it's just a little surprising. My only comment is that it's a little surprising that the Conservatives want to expand the scope of this bill, that the CRTC is in the position to evaluate the ideology of a news organization when granting an exemption order. Seems to go counter to everything we've heard on C11 and C18, but here we are.
I'm just getting a note from the legislative clerk. Mr. Julian.
I won't be supporting the sub-amendment, but I think it's fair to say I'm a little surprised too. Was surprised when I saw the amendment from the Conservatives on ideology and opinion, and I'm still quite surprised because it is something that has come up frequently around these bills. Around this bill, it would seem to me that given what the Conservatives have said, this is probably the last area that they should be venturing into, and particularly offering it as amendment. It contradicts what they've been saying about the bill. So I'll be voting against. I just find it somewhat surprising. I'm perplexed.
Okay, so if the sub-amendment proposed by Mrs. Thomas is adopted, NDP 7 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. So to wrap up the conversation on the sub-amendment by Mrs. Thomas, any other discussion?
To be clear, we are asking for the protection of diversity. We are asking for the protection of diverse thought, diverse opinions, diverse ideologies. I would expect the members around the table to protect the essence of what I'm saying rather than misconstrue it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. I see no other hands in the air, so if I can call for the vote.
On MP Thomas's
On the sub-amendment.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Epner.
Contre.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. Gladue.
Support.
Mr. Shields.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Support.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
Contre.
Thank you. That is 7 nays and 3 yeas.
Thank you, Clerk. So the sub-amendment by Mrs. Thomas is defeated. We will go back to NDP 5. Final thoughts, Mr. Julian, or would you want to head
Thank
to the
you,
vote?
Mr. Chair. I think everybody's expressed their opinion eloquently.
Okay. Seeing none then, I will call. Shall NDP 5 carry? No? Okay. Could we have a vote call?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau. Would you like me to come back to you, sir? Miss Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Sorry, in favor.
Thank you. Monsieur Chapoux.
Je vais voter contre.
Monsieur Julian.
About
Thank you, sir. 6 nays, 4 yeas.
Thank you. NDP 5 is defeated. We move on to CPC 13.1, which, if adopted, NDP 7 then could not be moved due to a line conflict. We move to Mrs. Thomas on CPC 13.1. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, we're good. Mrs. Thomas, if you can, on CPC 13.1, please.
Sorry. CPC 13.1, essentially we are asking that, again, it's simply just a mechanism of greater inclusion, that in the consideration of news sources, that different outlets would not be discriminated against based on ideology or opinion, but rather that there would be great freedom granted to these news organizations in that regard.
Thank you. Mr. Biddle.
Again, just very briefly, I know in C11 and C18 there's been concerns raised that the CRTC is going to regulate content. CRTC is going to regulate content, and there have been no amendments or nothing in the bills that do that. This is the only amendment that we've seen in those two bills that would put the CRTC in a position to regulate content, which, again, is surprising, and we're opposed.
Any further thoughts on CPC 13.1? Seeing none. Pardon? Oh, sorry, Marilyn, or Ms. Gladue, go ahead. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that, it's disturbing to me that the government is objecting to having diversity of ideology and opinion put into the list of things that we're including. That's concerning. That's exactly why Canadians are mistrustful of the legislation that's coming forward.
Mr. Housefather?
Thank you very much. I think the issue is the criteria that are set out in Section 6 are objective criteria. For example, language. We know if something is in English or French. We know if something is coming from a racialized group. We know if something is coming from an Indigenous community. We know what a local news and business model is. ideology is entirely subjective. And the last thing I think we want the CRTC to be doing is butting in and determining what the ideology and opinion of a newspaper is. Moreover, I think, as Mr. Champoux said before, news is not supposed to be biased. It's not supposed to have ideology or opinion, and we shouldn't be caring about the editorial content of any newspaper when we're evaluating what their journalism product is, which should be entirely outside of the ideology of the paper. Anyways, I think that's the main major difference. Thank you to my friend Marilyn for advancing that, though.
Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that putting ideology and opinion in here allows the full range of them. So it doesn't exclude anything. Then you could have opinions on all sides of the fence. That's the whole point.
Any other discussion on CPC 13.1? Seeing none, I will call for the vote on CPC 13.1.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. Gladue.
Support.
Mr. Shields.
You bet.
I'm sorry, sir, was that support or against?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mrs. Thomas.
In support.
Thank you. Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Monsieur Julian.
Contre.
7 nays, 3 yeas.
Thank you. CPC 13.1 is defeated. We move on to NDP 6, and before I give it to Mr. Julian, if NDP 6 is adopted, then NDP 7 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. Mr. Julian.
Sorry, Mr. I don't believe that's true.
Well,
That is...
you're challenging me now, but I'm shame on you.
That is
Chair,
not
it's
true.
because they both changed line 11.
I have the note here, so I am going to refer to Mr. Mela. So we're on NDP 6 here, and I have it here on the sheet that if it is adopted, 7 then can't be moved. We're being challenged on this. No? Right? Yeah, we can a brief recess. Are you,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
After a hurried but effective huddle with some of my colleagues, Mr. Champoux, Mr. Biddle, Mr. Housefather, thank you very much, Mr. Housefather. What I'm going to do is withdraw NDP 6. I'm going to sub-amend NDP 7 to include the language that is in NDP 6. If it was the other way around, we would be bringing the sub-amendment forward, but we, because of the order in which it was submitted, will withdraw NDP 6 and then sub-amend NDP 7.
okay. Then we'll move to NDP 7.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to offer a sub-amendment. Yeah.
Happy to do it. You can say I.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Housefather, yes, sub-amendment to NDP 7.
Sure. I'll give the floor right back to Mr. Julian, but I will sub-amend NDP 7 to add the language from NDP 6 at the beginning of the clause where NDP 7 would be. So number 6 would now be, they involve a range of news outlets in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors, and were entered into with news businesses that reflect a diversity of business models.
Sorry, say it again.
Yes, I'm introducing the words that you had before. So it would now say they involve a range of news outlets in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors that reflect a diversity of business models.
Brilliant.
Philippe, est-ce que tu veux que je le répète encore?
Would you like for me to repeat it?
Oui, merci.
Thank you.
Are we okay? I just wanted to say, because we have Mr. Morris here, that if NDP 7 is adopted, then PV2 cannot be moved due to the line conflict. All right?
Yep.
If NDP 7 is adopted, we're dealing with the sub-amendment now.
Oh, I see.
So we'll finish the sub-amendment, but I just wanted to flag that NDP 7, if it is in fact adopted, PV2 then would not be moved to a line. Is it okay for everyone if we hear from Mr. Morris first? Before the amendment, or no? We're not there yet, okay. Do the amendment then. Sub-amendment, are you okay on the? Mr. Julian?
I thought Mr. Housefather's sub-amendment was brilliant, and I would like to thank him for that.
All right, any other discussion on the sub-amendment of NDP 7? Seeing none, can I call for the vote on the sub-amendment? Yep. Can you just repeat the, okay, go ahead. We'll get the legislative clerk here, Mr. Mayala, to go through the sub-amendment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to make sure I have it properly, so it would go just before the text of NDP 7. We would add 6. They involve a range of news outlets in both the non-profit and for-profit sector, and then it continues.
That reflect the diversity of business models.
Yeah, and it continues. Yeah,
Yeah, mais on va radier that they were entered with news businesses.
that's right. Yeah,
Okay,
it continues.
parfait.
Yeah, the sub just add to that.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Everybody fine with the sub-amendment to NDP 7?
Yes.
Do I need to call a vote? Yes? Agreed?
There.
I could call the vote on the sub-amendment then.
Yeah,
Or do we
just
need?
as long as it,
Are we good?
well, I think we're good. I just want to make sure we're not forgetting about the guys that are
Okay.
digital. That's all.
Ms. Gladue or Hepner? Shields, yeah. Michael's good with it? Well, okay. So carried. The sub-amendment then is carried for NDP 7. As for NDP 7, then, Mr. Julian.
Yes, and again, my thanks to Mr. Housefather for his brilliant and methodical approach on this. I wanted to thank Cactus, who indicated to us the importance of the sub-amendment that we've just adopted. And as far as NDP 7 is concerned, wanted to underline that APTN, the Dans Nunavut, and the Fédération Nationale des Communications et de la Culture all offered this important suggestion in ensuring that Indigenous news outlets are part of Clause 11 and part of the obligations that the web giants have before they can apply for an exemption. In other words, something that needs to be considered so that the obligations would include ensuring a significant portion of Indigenous news outlets benefit from them, and they contribute to the sustainability of those outlets in a way that supports the provisions of news content by and for Indigenous peoples. And also includes that these agreements have been entered into with business models that provide services to all markets and diverse populations, including Anglophone and Francophone communities, official language minority communities, and Black and other racialized communities. There's no doubt that this amendment helps to strengthen the diversity component of the legislation, and wanted to thank all of those who testified before us and made those important suggestions, and I hope that this amendment will be adopted and improve C18.
If it's okay with the committee, could I get approval from Mr. Morris to speak to NDP 7, if you don't mind? Yep. Okay,
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I'd like to propose for PV2 to be considered as a sub-amendment to NDP 7.
The legislative clerk said you can't move amendments. You can just speak on NDP 7 here.
Okay. Then I'd like to speak to the fact that currently NDP 7 doesn't include the need to include community radio stations and community broadcasters, which is referenced in what is currently PV2, encouraging participation of private, public, and community-based broadcasters to be included, and that doing so is supported by organizations like the Community Radio Fund of Canada and the National Campus and Community Radio Association. My understanding is someone else must now potentially introduce this as a sub-amendment then. Is that correct, Chair?
Yeah, it is correct, but you're not eligible to introduce a sub-amendment. You can only speak to what we're talking about here as NDP 7. Mr. Housefather, just for clarification.
Yeah, just to clarify, I just wanted to mention to Mr. Morris, who may have just missed that there was also an amendment to NDP 7, which came from NDP 6, that now starts the whole clause off by talking about a wide range of news outlets in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. So it certainly encompasses things like community radio stations and other nonprofit community-based broadcasting, because it was amended.
Does that clarify everything for you, Mr. Morris? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you. Anything else on NDP 7 then? Seeing nothing, I will call for the vote on NDP 7. As amended, right, as amended.
Thank you. NDP 7 as amended. Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hefner.
En faveur.
Mr. Housefather.
In favor.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux.
En faveur.
Monsieur Julian.
So if I voted in favor, it would be unanimous, right, Mr. Chair?
It would be.
I'm pleased to vote in favor and make it unanimous.
Yeah, congratulations. That's the first one we've had around that. So NDP 7 as amended is carried. As I said, PV2 now cannot be moved due to a line conflict. So we move to NDP 8, and we welcome once again Mr. Julian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Cet amendement vient de la Fédération.
This amendment comes from the National Communications and Culture Federation, and it pertains to ensuring that there are public consultations that could be held regarding exemptions. So I'm adding public consultations in accordance with any conditions that its chairperson may specify, and that the order remain in effect for a period of not more than 5 years, and subject to this section, may be renewed. So it pertains to the structure of exemptions to make sure that public consultations could be held, and it also integrates a maximum period for this section. And I thank this witness for their important suggestion regarding this amendment.
Any discussion on NDP 8? Seeing no other hands, we'll call for the vote. Should NDP 8 carry? Yeah, we can call for the vote just in case.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I'm not sure what's on the screen here.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hepner.
In favor.
Mr. Housefather. Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Champoux.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
Monsieur le Président, si je vote,
Mr. Chair, if I vote for, it will be unanimous.
alors je vote en faveur.
So I'll vote for.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. You're on a roll. So yeah, I know. We still have a little time. Let's move to CPC 13.2. And we give the floor to Mrs. Thomas here. I know everybody is, kind of jittery over airplanes and that. So if we can wrap this one up, we'll see where we're at after that for time. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. So again, it returns to a previous point made, which is that more and more Canadians are becoming skeptical of news and government engagement, wanting to be reassured that there is no undue political influence. That is something that we are seeing from more than half of the Canadian population that has chimed in on recent polls. And so essentially what this does, 13.2, it removes ministerial discretion, and it basically mandates the creation of mechanisms to include news businesses not provided for in the initial exemption order. And so with that, it removes cabinet and what might become a partisan decision, or at least would have the appearance thereof. So it takes that out. What it I think what it also does is it makes sure, again, that there's great certainty for eligible news sources in ensuring them that there is no vague gray area, but rather that the terms are clearly set. Those wishing to enter into negotiations will have the opportunity to do so without being locked out. In Australia, we saw that. We saw where local news sources were actually locked out. So basically, the big players made it to the table. They entered into negotiations with DNIs, and then the government said, okay, that's good. We reached this magical number of X million dollars. No more negotiations necessary. And so my concern, and the concern of many local news outlets, is that the government of the day would perhaps do the same here in Canada. That this magic number, it's here in Canada, it's surmised to be around $330 million, and so the concern from local news media, or sorry, local from local news outlets, is that once that number is reached, that the government will no longer require negotiations to be entered into, and of course that leaves these little guys out. So that being the case, and wanting to defend our local communities as well as ethnic media, I am choosing to move CPC 13.2 as a protective mechanism for them.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle.
Much, Mr. Chair, and I'll be very quick. I do recall from the evidence from Australia that the small media outlets that did get together, and we did hear evidence of substantial success of small media outlets, disproportionate even to larger elements from our one of our earliest witnesses from Australia, who did appear in the very early hours of Australian time. While we appreciate the intent of this amendment, it's important to note that exemptions aren't permanent. The CRTC can reevaluate the relevance of an exemption should an influx of new news organizations occur. We also already have a series of programs dedicated to supporting journalism's startups, which Conservatives have historically fought against. So we will be opposed.
Ms. Thomas.
Sure. Just to once again the record, the honourable member would recall that there was indeed an Australian witness who came forward and said everything was fine and dandy in Australia. And then there was a written submission that was given to us as committee members around this table from local news outlets in Australia, several hundred of them actually, who got together and co-signed this letter to us that said indeed that actually is not correct, that they did in fact get left out in the cold. So I certainly wouldn't want that to happen to local media sources here in Canada. Again, that's the reason for the motion on the table, and I would hope the government would want to defend them as well.
Any other discussion on CPC 13.2? Seeing none then, I'll proceed to the vote.
Thank you, sir. CPC 13.2, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
Contre.
7 nays, 3 yeas.
CPC 13.2 is defeated. We have a hard stop at 3:02. What is the wish of this committee? We got it. If we keep going? Okay, so CPC 14, we lead it off with the Conservatives. Ms. Gladue, please address CPC 14 if you can.
Sure. You remember the other day we had the conversation. We were trying to put some definition around size of entities, and we had proposed different thresholds of dollar values. And the comment, I believe, from Mr. Riley was that this would be put in the regulations. So this amendment is just to make sure that it will be put in the regulations, so that we do get that definition on, size of organization, et cetera.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. No?
Okay, so sure. So thank you to my colleague for weighing in there. Indeed, that's exactly it. So essentially, what we're just trying to do here with CPC 14 is just create greater clarity. It's being put forward by my colleague, Mr. Nader, and so this was one of the mechanisms that he wanted put in place. In order to help bring greater certainty, again, in order to serve various news outlets, and in particular, those that are smaller in nature, to ensure that they do, in fact, get a fair shake before DNIs can close their doors and no longer have to enter into negotiations.
Thank you. Mrs. Gladue, or Ms. Gladue, you still have your hand up. Do you wish to speak?
No, it's a leftover, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Biddle.
Chair. The Governor and Council has the power to specify exemption thresholds that already exists under Section 84C and D, and that will be used. Creating the exact same powers for the CRTC would create a conflict. The news landscape is constantly shifting. Setting specific thresholds for a constantly shifting sector, in my opinion, is not a good idea. And once again, it's a little surprising to see. I know there's been expressed concern about the GIC having powers to regulate, which historically they always have, but it's surprising to see the Conservatives want to trust the CRTC with regulation-making powers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on CPC 14 as we move forward? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sir. CPC 14, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Opposed.
Mr. Housefather.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Shields.
In favor?
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Champoux.
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
Contre.
7 nays, 3 yays.
CPC 14 is defeated. The hard stop is 302, and from here it's 301.50. Mr. Julian.
I do believe there's clause 11 that we can look
Yeah,
to
we
carry.
can do that, yes. And
Yes.
then, yeah, thank you very much. Shall clause 11 carry as amended?
On division.
No. Call for the vote, please.
Yes, sir. Clause 11, Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Ms. Hefner.
En faveur.
Mr. Housefather.
En faveur.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. Gladue.
No.
Mr. Shields.
Opposed.
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Mr. Champoux.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
And we.
7 yays, 3 nays.
Thank you. Clause 11 will carry. Thank you, everyone. We'll see
Do we
what
have
happens Tuesday.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Could we
Very
have
good.
a motion to adjourn? There we go. So moved.
Here, here.